Hello people, this is Ryder here to review the Avataro Sentai Donbrothers DX Omikoshi Phoenix. So yeah, this is a first for us in this, because we're actually covering a mech component. Gosh, we're covering a mech component, but who cares? Because interestingly, obviously this is a roleplay item, obviously, but it's also a mech component, obviously, because with a Avataro gear, as you can see, and we can see Omikoshi Phoenix right there with Goldon Oni Taijin. I don't remember. We got Goldon Oni Taijin and Goldon Momotaro. Luckily, like, I know they didn't do this because of consistency, but it is kind of interesting that this is consistent with the Zenkai gear just being art renditions instead of like an actual suit. Obviously, because it is a roleplay weapon, they do have or a roleplay item, they do have the QR code prominently up there. And because this is a mech item, there is the art rendition. Is this? I don't think this is art. I'm pretty sure this is the actual toy, just heavily filtered. But here we have Goldon Momotaro, which honestly I don't really think they do a good job at actually showcasing it, just because it's always blocked off and such. The bottom and the back is basically the front. It's just that, you know, there's Goldon Momotaro and the Senpaijers, obviously, because they tell you use those gears. And the prominent PDF QR code. But yeah, whoop-de-doo. So here we have the contents out of the box. Obviously we have the Avataro Kiwami gear, and obviously the Omikoshi Phoenix itself. Obviously, for the sake of this video, we're not going to take a look at any of its, we're not going to acknowledge any of its mech compatibility and such. But I guess to just bring it up, this thing does come apart into 3 pieces, and obviously you get mech combination sounds by sliding the swords here and clipping clipping the avatar gear like so, just like the Ryuko no Geki, although this is a lot more tighter than that. But obviously this is there, but we're not going to touch on that, just obviously because the majority of all this stuff is for combinations, to which this is not the video for that. Like, obviously, like, some of these are going to end up falling apart. Like, this helmet really likes falling apart. But you know, for the most part, I really do like the Omikoshi Phoenix. It's very simple for the most part, and like, obviously it's not really original to have a Phoenix power up, because that's kind of always their go-to. Like, you know, we obviously had this with Care Major and such, but obviously this is more of like an actual Phoenix. I mean, not an actual Phoenix, it's just a different variation of the Phoenix. But I really do like how this gold chrome looks, and like the red chrome really is nice overall, and like the detailing is neat because we have the Donbrothers logo, we got the waves of water, and we have it right here too. The gold paint is really neat. Obviously the Phoenix still has the shades and such, and I really do like how this looks. The blue plastic is pretty sweet. And then again, we got mech component pieces, but I really do like the tail part, and I really do like this detail of this being the leg and the arms and like the talons, which kind of makes me question what exactly is this entire base then, if this is the entire Phoenix. So what is it riding in between? Other than that, obviously, as I pointed out before, basically, this is basically the entirety of the Phoenix. It's just this piece. Everything else obviously just kind of slides and clips on. This is the speaker, to which kind of gets muffled because of the tailpiece, but we kind of have to keep it there. There's a back button, which is shaped as a peach, which is pretty neat. And again, the bowl tab has 3 LR44s. Here's the bottom. Blue transparent, translucent plastic. The light sensor. And then, I find this part to be interesting because this is like a somewhat, this is like a bronze color, which is pretty interesting for the body. Again, I kind of wish it carried over through the leg. I think that's kind of my only gripe. I kind of just wish there was at least some color here, but I guess they didn't want, like, there was no point if this, again, was a battery compartment and such. Yeah, there's not really much to compare this with. I just, it's a pretty nice Phoenix overall to, like, just, be like pew pew and such. Speaking of pew pews, let's pull tab. So there we get a white LED here, which is pretty neat. And we get 4 blasting sounds. And like what I said before, if you hold this down, this is meant for the combination with Goldon Oni Taijin. But again, we're gonna disregard all of that. And yeah, so let's take a look at the Avataro gear. Again, this is called the Avataro Kiwami gear, so I don't know why they decided to shake the name up with this one. And also, just, looking at this one, I'm actually surprised of how this one's kind of, like, tilted and such, unless I'm just holding it wrong. But this one is still, like, yeah, this one's interesting, because, like, obviously it's a Robotaro gear, but there's actually, like, nothing of, like, Omikoshi Phoenix or, like, Goldon Oni Taijin, like, stuff like that. It only just has the kanji for Kiwami? I don't think that's right. Other than that, this is B. Let's cheat by actual memorization. 128. And this one has the trans stamp and such, sadly. But, yeah, this is like the second to last, the second to last proper Avataro gear. It's obviously double notch, so it should only work in Donbrothers stuff. But you know how those notches are. But yeah, I feel like this one's kind of different compared to, like, the other Robotaro gears, because as you can see here, like, when you shine it like this, it looks like completely foil, and then you get all of this here. So, like, if I were to, like, I guess here's Don Senkaio, for example. I mean, I guess they're kind of the same, but I feel like the pattern's definitely a lot more present because of the fact of how, like, these ones are different and such, because it feels like this one's a lot more all round and such. Yeah. The main item that the Omikoshi Phoenix goes with is the Dawn Blaster and such, because obviously we have this very highly suspicious rail system. So obviously what you do is that you align this rail with the top of the Dawn Blaster like so, and then you want to grab it like in the middle. I don't recommend you holding it from here because obviously the face is going to come off and such, so just hold it like at the center and like push the Phoenix in. Obviously push the Phoenix on on, and just push the Phoenix until it clips itself in the Dawn Blaster. Was it always that badly framed? I apologize. Let's do that again. So that's the traditional sense of like slotting the Omikoshi Phoenix in. You get the party time, which is kind of the same, which is the same way that the Ryukuno Geki works with this, and then you get this thing announcing itself, and then you simply close the wings in, and you close them down like so, which is where we get the Dawn Blaster with Omikoshi Phoenix, which makes this thing a lot weightier. Definitely, this thing feels really weighty. So I kind of recommend, like, obviously for the sake of this, I have to hold this with two hands just because my one hand cannot deal with this and such. But there are variations of just the activation sound of this, and that's the sound of this of going out, because obviously this actually just simply presses a button and then it reacts. It just waits until a sensor goes up to it and such. But obviously I turned on the Dawn Blaster. If we were to activate it and insert Omikoshi Phoenix, so it'll actually announce itself like right away after the button pressing sound. Obviously, because it doesn't know that a gear was recognized and such. But if we were to turn it off and turn it on now, it does that activation too, which I think is really sweet. So obviously, we just get a one singular firing sound. And you can't like rapidly press it just because I think it's just because of how the signal sending, just the transferring of signals goes. And then if you were to press the peach back here, you don't get anything. So obviously the main thing with this is the ability to transform Dawn Momotaro into Golden Momotaro. So obviously just simply insert the gear like so, and then you want to obviously transform the same way that you would typically use this. But obviously now you actually got an LED to go along with this, and then here's the standby. And this is going to be interesting because basically this is where the two toys are going to like conjoin together, as you're going to get sounds for both this and this. As I spoke for too long. So as you can hear, those are coming from this. And obviously now you're getting sounds from this. And you just press the trigger. So there we get the transformation of Golden Momotaro, which I really do like overall. It's a nice, like, more upbeat version of the traditional transformations of Donbrothers. And it's really interesting just to have more vocals within the transformation and such. Excuse me. Obviously I think the firing sound's still the same. Yeah. Obviously this basically, with the Omikoshi Phoenix, it basically kind of just reduced, like, basically kind of just accommodates, I don't know how you pronounce the word. It kind of like shortens down the functionality of the Dawn Blaster into two, like, just into two functions, which is the firing sound, because you can no longer hold it and like do that thing, because obviously you're just going to transform again, and you only have the one finisher and such. So again, to initiate the finisher, press the button back here. And as you're going to basically tell, these finishers are actually kind of in place. Like these are basically supposed to like be like the substitution of like the Zonglass sword finishers, like which makes a lot of sense and such. But obviously, take the gear out like so, and basically we're gonna. So for the most part, we're gonna use gears that were actually used within the show, and plus some like extra gears. So obviously, the only other one that was actually used within the show was Future Oni Sister, which obviously is the same transformation process. Just simply take this out and put it back in. I also press the trigger. So basically, for all the other Donbrothers, it'll have their like suffix and then festival time and basically cho and then whatever their end phrase was, just like how it was with the Robotaro gears. And you know the finisher. So obviously, because they're not Momotaro, they don't get a new like suffix or like a new end phrase. Last but not least, we will use Torvolt, as Torvolt and Juragoku will be interesting. So we actually get the Torvolt announcement from the Tiger Dora. And then we get a end phrase that's going to be very similar to what we're going to look at later. Standby is basically the same. But we get that phrase from the Tiger Dora or Torvolt / Juragoku stuff, which is really neat. Because obviously it makes sense. You have the sound, you might as well add it and such. Next up, we will take a look at the other main feature, which is the Senpaiger avatar changes. So we'll take a look at two of them, just because these aren't really... Actually, we'll take a look at one per set, but in like chronological order of appearance. So here is Jolger. So as you can hear, this thing says Jolger, but then this thing will continue. And then, obviously, the standby has been redone like that. So obviously that's similar to what Juragoku and Torvolt have. However, what's interesting is the finishers. So when we press this, obviously this is not what we're used to with what we've already looked at. That was not good wording. So obviously, if you couldn't tell, that standby sound was actually from the whale change gun and such. Next up, we will use Roof Soldier. This was the second to last one used. So obviously, they no longer have their own specific transformations, but obviously that's all made up with the finishers. And as you can tell, there is somewhat a delay between the Dawn Blaster and Omikoshi Phoenix. Because you can tell I pressed the button, but it's like a millisecond away. But obviously you can tell the standby from there comes from the Max Russo changer. Which honestly I feel like is one of the more weakest ones, especially with the punt. I would have liked the Russo caliber, but it makes sense of where they're going with this. And this one's not done, but I just really like this one. Go Busters. This one can't be done because the harness. Yeah, sometimes it will actually like activate right away, and then sometimes it will just delay itself. But I forgot to say this because I said that this one can't happen. Basically, with the Senpaigers, this allows Don Momotaro to this still allows them to Avatar change, but it just gives the Senpaigers the armor of the Omikoshi Phoenix and such, which for the most part, for what we've seen, like of the 4 that were done, it's pretty decent. This has got to be my favorite one. What was I gonna say? Because I forgot the literary cover, because I need to state what these ones are. Obviously, I don't remember what this one's called. I want to call it the Lyo Buster, or the Tatagami Buster or something like that. That's what Go Busters comes from, and it's my absolute favorite one. I'm just gonna go for what I see, but actually we need to save one of these because we would jump into the altar because this one's pretty interesting. Ow. So yeah, altar gears are now recognized as altars, which is pretty cool, because now this gives the implication that he can use Omikoshi Phoenix with the altars. And the reason why I had to stop myself is because if we were to use a Senpaiger altar gear, Obviously, it's basically the same thing as using like the normal Avataro gear, but now it actually waits and says alter. Like, just the fact they finally got this guy to say alter is neat. And obviously, if you couldn't tell, for some reason, some of the clips, I think because of the soundboard in here, they had to speed up they had to speed up the duration. I think they could have done a bit better, but if it were to do the finisher, obviously I think this one works pretty well because it's the Go Cureful, or the Cureful Go Arrow. Obviously, both Phoenixes, so that really works. And obviously, the way the finishers are done in the show is that Taro would lift the wing up, which both of them would have been lifted up, and then he would shoot like this and such. But obviously, sadly, this toy doesn't have both of these connected because it will obviously mess up with the transformation and such. And then we will jump into the Robotar gears, so we'll only use, I think we'll only use Saru Robotaro for future Saru brother, and Toradora Ganjin for another Juragoku Torvald gear. Again, it's cool that Toradora Ganjin is in this thing. Finisher is what you expected. Alright, so with this, now leads us to the main course, which is the Avataro Kiwami Robotaro gear. So, using this, sorry. So we get an entire new Gatai sound, and press the trigger. So there we have the combination sound for Godan Oni Taijin, and sadly only Godan Oni Taijin. Toradora Godan Toradora, was it just Toradora Oni Taijin Kiwami or something like that? I don't think Toradora is a part of it. I know it was a different name with Kiwami at the end, but the finisher. So we get that part at the end, obviously, because this one being the final combination and such. Actually, why did we do that? We need to actually keep this. But yeah, that's basically the majority of the functions of this thing within what we have. obviously there's not much that we looked into yet, but and there's still a lot that we need to cover, but obviously some of it we need to keep for future reviews or keep away or just not bring up due to future reviews. But anyways, if we were to use this by itself, oops. We just get the standard secret. However, if we were to use this with the Zanglass sword, rainbow colors. So this does acknowledge this as a grand Avataro gear, which is pretty cool. There goes the light. And then for the Tiger Dora. So it says secret, but if you obviously it still does the corresponding standby. So it still acknowledges it as a Robotaro gear, so it's at least more nicer to you than like the Dawn Blaster. And then we will use the Rikonogeki. But it acknowledges it as an Avataro gear for some reason. And I'm not going to bother with the Zanglass sword because it just defaults it into the generic gold and silver colors, so nothing special, sadly. But yeah, just simply fold that out like so. And yeah, my thoughts overall on the basics of Omikoshi Phoenix. It's a really nice power-up item, for sure. Just because it allows you to, literally, upgrades the Dawn Blaster and allows you to do just so much more with it. Yes, just like the Zanglass sword, just like the Tiger Dora, just like those two, there are limitations, obviously. Obviously, we only showed the most valuable parts of it, but obviously as we're going to cover through this next round of videos, the cutbacks are do kind of suck, but I kind of get it, just because it's not the main point, but the fact that this thing still does a lot is pretty sweet. And again, just the interactivity between this and the Dawn Blaster is really impressive for the most part. Again, there's some delays and such within the communication of the lights and such. Other than that, it's just kind of fun for the Senpaijers to at least still be relevant in some way, despite the fact that concept has been constantly being thrown at the back door because it's an Inoue show. Why would he care about the gimmicks? But just the fact that they bothered still implementing the Senpaijers, the Senpaijer gimmick into this thing is great. And I just really like how it's different between, I just really like how it elevates for each item. And the Dawn Blaster is just the basic transformations. The weapons are the basic finishers. And then with this one, it's the standbys of those finishers and such. Because I know I cut myself off beforehand, but like basically a rundown of all the sounds with the others. The Gokaiger Avataro gear is the Galleon Buster. The Churiger is Carnival. The Gabatira de Carnival's like standby. Tokyuger's the Hyper Cannon. Russia, the Hyper Cannon. The Ninjas is probably the most interesting. Like the ones that aren't blasters are pretty interesting. Except for Ryu Soldier, that one's still weird. But Ninjas is the final finisher with the Chozetsu Shuriken within the Ninja Jibanto. Q Rangers, the Psycho Kyutama with the All-Star Crash or the Infinish Blast. Lupin Rangers, obviously you get the Lupin Magnum. Pata Rangers is probably the second greatest one because I don't know why I didn't show it because it wasn't used. The Pata Rangers is the Siren Striker, which is great. And Zenkaiger, again, one I probably would have like if I swapped out Jojer and Ryu Soldier for Pata Ranger and Zenkaiger, I think I probably should have done that, but well, I wanted to use the ones actually used in the show. Zenkaiger is obviously the Zenroku Zenkai Cannon, which I feel like really works as a round out item. As this is, I mean, this basically serves as that in the Zenkaiger gear and such. But I just really like how, I guess, again, they like elevated this and like actually made like they didn't make the power up just another like giant gear. It's literally an additional device that you attach to the transmission device. Obviously they've done that stuff before, but like again, like this thing practically just works on its own while like the Dawn Blasters kind of houses it. But speaking of which, I had to talk about my final thoughts on this entire toy line because I forgot this was the final toy of this toy line. Like, obviously we're still going to continue, but we're basically covering the etc. stuff. But, overall, my thoughts on the Donbrothers toy line is that it feels like it's what Bandai wanted to do with Zenkaiger, but they were so unsure about it that it just seems like Zenkaiger was kind of a testing period just to see if there was any interest of actually doing a gimmick based another Sentai legend, a legend gimmick within Sentai and such, which is why they didn't bother to do sets and only restricted them in Gashpon Candy Toy, and why they were only basically utilized for the one device, and just how they didn't really do much and such, and saw that it was okay, that there was interest and that what they did was okay. So I feel with Donbrothers, it feels like it's basically what they wanted to do and such, to which I feel really helps set the Donbrothers toy line apart from Zenkaiger. As Donbrothers actually, obviously, no offense to Zenkaiger and such, Zenkaiger was really easy to pick up and such. Obviously that's if you were actually buying them when they were announced and such. But the Zenkaiger toy line was not really present within roleplay wise. It was only the two changers, the Zenkai Ju gear, and then the Zenroku Zenkai Cannon. Roleplay wasn't really Zenkaiger's strongest point, but I feel Donbrothers definitely stepped up on roleplay and such. And it just, you can just tell just how much more passionate I guess they felt with the Donbrothers stuff, which is how more innovative they were with each item and such. And they definitely took criticism, I guess the criticisms from what they got from Zenkaiger and improved from that. Like what I said, the Tiger Dora does severely a lot more than the Geert Dullinger. It's not as comprehensive as the Dawn Blaster, as we'll see later, but it's still so much more in the Gear Dolinger and such. And then, like, the weapons are fantastic and such. Again, like, which is why I don't mind the fact of, like, this thing or, like, the Tiger Dora don't even, like, aren't, like, as comprehensive. Because these things will have, like, when you use a weapon with, like, the Tiger Dora, for example, it's still gonna know what you put in. And what, obviously, this thing is kind of, like, a bit lower than, like, the Zanglass sword. Like, I want to say this thing is kind of mostly on par with the Ryuko no Geki, with how much it can read and such. But obviously, again, there are still some things we need to look into it and such. But, like, overall, like, I think Donbrothers is pretty, like, great overall. Like, obviously, it's kind of, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of too passive, like, whether or not you want to say it's overwhelming or it's underwhelming, because it is just rehashing the same gimmick in another way and such. So, which, speaking of that, like, I think overall, I think at the end of the day, I have kind of grown to like the Avataro gears a bit more, just because there is a bit more color to them. The Sentai gears, I think, work well within the context of Zenkaiger and such, and just work as, like, what they initially served. But with the Avataro gears, I think, yeah, like, they don't have the Kikai side and such, but the thing is that, you know, you never saw that with all the other Sentai gears, so it's like, I don't mind losing it. Like, and just overall, like, just the amount of things you can do with the Avatar gears compared to, like, a Sentai gear is, like, pretty, like, fantastic and such. But really, it is up to you what gimmick you like and such. I still think both of them have their merits and such. But yeah, that'll have to do with this review. I think that was the most passionate I talked about a toy line in a while. Because I don't think I never got to do that with any other toy line. Because I don't even think I did it with Saber. And Revice is going to take forever. So, obviously, we still have a lot more things to cover, but at this point, it's kind of like the side stuff. This is Ryder, and I'll leave you people. Bye.